What a start to 2025 for our beautiful community in the Tampa Bay Sports Commission here. This is the Game Day Everyday podcast alongside Executive Director of the Sports Commission, Rob Higgins. I am Ryan Bass. So good to have you all here. Rob, it's been a sprint, it feels like, to start here in 2025. We are quickly approaching the women's Final Four. The bananas were nuts, or bananas, if you will. Lionel Messi in town. I know you had some trips to Columbus. We're going to cover it all here on the Game Day Everyday podcast. So excited to have you aboard and have all our listeners back for another episode. Rob, have you taken a breath yet, my friend? It has been event after event after event to kick off this year.
Sleep is overrated, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, it has been crazy start to 2025, from having our sneaker soiree in January to the Stadium Series announcement to Messi at Ray J, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about, to the bananas this past weekend, women's Final Four coming up. Just so many different things happening. Such a great time for Team Tampa Bay, and it's an awesome role that we do not plan on stopping anytime soon.
I'll tell you, just to quickly hit on the first event you mentioned, the soiree. So grateful to be in attendance. Awesome that my buddy and your buddy Chris Young came and had an incredible performance, and the night was spectacular. I don't know how you do it, buddy. Each and every year, you and your team raise the bar, and it seems like I don't know how you're going to top it in 2026. I know you will do it because nothing stops you and your team from accomplishing everything and anything in your path. But man, what a fun night it was at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. It was awesome to be a part of.
It was great. We're so fortunate to have so many amazing partners on that event. Starts with the franchises and goes to all the different table sponsors. You mentioned Chris Young. The performance was incredible. We appreciate all your support and help on getting your buddy there. He was definitely a huge highlight that night, but I mean, just the celeb turnout, all the different inspirational stories. It was definitely a night we'll never forget, and we're going to be focused on raising the bar here at some point, but we got a lot to get through before having to worry about that. That's for sure.
I know each and every year at the soiree, we celebrate the year that was. And I'll tell you, 2026, when we get there in January, is going to celebrate quite the year that is here in 2025. I just want to kick things off on this podcast with the weekend that was at Raymond James Stadium with the Savannah Bananas. Banana Ball with a record, a sold out Raymond James Stadium, 65,000 Banana fans were packed into that stadium. It was their first ever Banana Ball event in an NFL stadium. Rob, the energy, I know you and I have talked about it, it was off the charts. The excitement was there. There were people lined up, packed hours before the entirety, of the event got kicked off. Man, what a night it was at Raymond James Stadium with Banana Ball, a smashing success yet again in our community.
Absolutely. It was phenomenal. Got to start with a thank you to Jesse Cole, though. I mean, when the hurricane hit and the Trop became unplayable, he basically had a decision. He had, at that point in time, probably 11 other MLB parks all ringing him off the hook to say, hey, we can take those dates and help you guys out. Well, if he did those, basically he could have probably done over 80,000 for the weekend, 2 nights at 40,000, but he's so committed to our community and we've had such a great partnership that he basically was willing to get creative. And Eric Hart from the Tampa Sports Authority and I worked really fast to be able to put together the partnership at Raymond James. You mentioned the historic nature of it. I mean, it's been covered nationally from a variety of different angles, from Sports Illustrated to ESPN. The Bananas selling out 65,000 people at Raymond James Stadium. They really did it in just a couple days' time. I mean, it was very fast when they opened up the ticket applications for it. And you mentioned the arrival time. I mean, we were seeing people tailgate at 2:00 and thousands of people lining up. And, when the doors opened 2.5 hours early, which is really early for an event to open doors, the energy in the building was electric, that far out. And it was so special. I'll never forget that as we started to map out the event and we were trying to be intentional with the Bananas in terms of what the event looked like, and we talked about setting up home plate in front of the pirate ship and the way they incorporated that into the storytelling. I mean, it really was a postcard for Tampa Bay, Raymond James, the Buccaneers. I mean, they do everything with a lot of intentionality, as I mentioned. Just a really, really special night. We'll never forget. 65,000 people, but there were 65,000 smiles there that night, and so much fun and so many memories that people will be talking about for years to come.
Low Cash made an appearance as well. I know there was a hometown performance, from the
Yeah,
country being Low Cash.
and some people may have, that may have, been over their head, or so. I had a couple people say to me, "Wow, that was Low Cash performance." I said, "Yeah, wasn't it really cool that Jesse and them played into the football theme and did a halftime show in their first ever NFL building?" And people were like, "Wait, they did a halftime show." There's so many different Easter eggs that they build in or bake into the overall game that sometimes you miss out on because you're just having so much fun and singing along and everything else. But at the end of the day, our modern day PT Barnum, Walt Disney, Bill Veeck, everybody wrapped into one Jesse Cole has this thing programmed down to the millisecond from the minute you pull your car in to the time that you leave. I mean, I was staying out in the plaza 11:30 at night. The game had ended 2 hours before, and Jesse is still out there signing autographs for any and every fan that wanted one. They had a band out there. I mean, the entertainment value, just hours and hours on end. I mean, there's people there that were there for 9 hours that had spent, that had paid for a $40 ticket. Where else do you get that? I mean, it's incredible. It really truly is, and our hats off to Jesse for believing in our community and continuing to partner with us. We love the firsts, whether it was being the first city in their tour last year, to their first community that's ever welcomed 50,000 Banana fans to be in their first ever NFL building. We hope the first keep on coming because they are one of the hottest sports entertainment properties on the planet.
And all credit to Jesse Cole, who we had a chance to dive into his story on a previous episode of the Game Day Everyday podcast, and so grateful for the love. He feels the love in our community, and our community is certainly loving Banana Ball back. And so, what an exciting weekend it was! What a banner day it was at Raymond James Stadium, and so grateful for that. Ray J didn't just host Banana Ball; it hosted the GOAT. A couple of weeks back on Valentine's Day, Rob, with Lionel Messi, so many pink jerseys in the crowd, so many people were buzzing. I think I saw just some of your coverage of the number of people that had bought tickets from around the world. Am I correct? All 50 states were in attendance for Lionel Messi's appearance at Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah, all 50 states, 30 countries bought tickets.
Wow.
To see Messi play, and what an electric night that was as well. 42,000 people. It really was like a religious experience for a lot of people to get a chance to see the greatest player of all time. And I think there was people going into it that were really skeptical of if he was going to play. We kept saying, "Look, we know he's going to play. We're really confident." Their coach confirmed it earlier in the week. And for him to not only play, I think some people would have been happy with 20 minutes. But for him to go for 75 minutes in a preseason game in our hometown was just an incredible opportunity and treat for everybody that came out that night. Really, it was a record crowd. It was the biggest crowd to ever watch a soccer match at Raymond James Stadium. But again, a night that none of us will ever forget. I mean, our community, a lot of people forget, our very first professional franchise was the original Rowdies. This is a community that appreciates and was built on soccer. So again, to have the greatest player of all time take the field in our hometown was phenomenal.
It was electric, and I love if you hadn't had a chance to read the recap from our good friend Joey Johnston on TampaBaySports.org, please do, because the anecdotes that he has in that article of just talking about, I mean, just the American flag that was draped and Messi touching it, and the fan grabbing and holding onto it too, all the little ones, high school students and beyond that were in attendance, and teenagers that were just mesmerized by Messi's magic. It really does encapsulate what was such a special night at Raymond James Stadium for Messi Magic and the Florida Derby. And so awesome to have the heartbeat of soccer and one of the greatest to ever do it, if not the greatest to ever do it on the pitch. Dawn, Raymond James Stadium was quite just quite the scene to take in. And it doesn't stop there. Ray J will be the official site of the outdoor game, which will be coming to Raymond James Stadium and the National Hockey League. I cannot wait for the outdoor festival that will be the NHL's biggest spectacle, one of, if not, between the Florida Panthers and, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning. That'll be kind of Florida-centric in terms of some of the NHL's biggest events. But, Rob, that is fast approaching. Excited for that. And I know we've talked about it on our previous episode, just how historic it will be. You talk about, how are you going to make hockey work in Florida and on the ice? Well, I can safely say, especially after the NHL trade deadline and what we've seen from the Lightning and the Florida Panthers, the epicenter of hockey is in Florida, and it's going to continue to be here all the way into 2026.
No doubt about it. We had the opportunity, along with our good friends at the Lightning and Raymond James Stadium, to go to Columbus just a few weeks ago for this year's Stadium Series event.
You looked cold, buddy. I will say you looked cold.
I was freezing. I didn't know what these hand warmer things were, but I cracked the plastic, put them in my pockets, and I gripped on them for dear life as it got, down into the teens at least. So not used to that. I can assure anybody that next Gasparilla weekend, that will not be the case. We're definitely going to turn down the AC to make sure that the ice is in pristine condition. However, we will not have the Columbus temperatures, but I will tell you, they did a heck of a job there. It was awesome getting an opportunity to study the event, get a behind the scenes tour.
Yeah, what did you take away? What was maybe some of your biggest takeaways from going to Columbus?
Well, I think the storytelling behind the event was phenomenal. Steve Mayer with the NHL does an amazing job. We talked about the bananas and Jesse. If I was to write a list of some of the top folks in the entire world in terms of storytelling and using an event to be able as a platform to leverage not only to the folks that are in attendance, but then to all the folks at home as well watching on television. Those are two of the best in the business. So Steve and his team did a fantastic job leaning into all the college traditions at Ohio State. Whether it was the helmet stickers, they would add them to the field as goals were scored, to the music aspect and using Columbus-centric bands like 21 Pilots and OAR, to a lot of the traditions around the march into the stadium. There was hundreds of different things that they had thought through and had managed and created and had an opportunity to lean into. So that first and foremost was one of the aspects that I really loved, and we cannot wait to be able to work with Steve and his team to use that postcard from Tampa Bay with all the eyes on us, and then everything down to the way they manage the ice, to a lot of the ancillary events, their pregame fan fest, and everything else. We already are in planning mode. The NHL was here last Monday and Tuesday, working with us and meeting with us, as well as a lot of our other key stakeholders. And we cannot be more excited for next February 1st, as well as that entire weekend. It's going to be really special.
This is going to be the first time the NHL has hosted outdoor games in Florida. Of course, you've got the Stadium Series, which will be between the Lightning and the Bruins. That's going to be coming up, as you mentioned, on Gasparilla weekend, February 1st. And then there's, of course, the NHL Winter Classic that'll be down in Miami on January 2nd between the Rangers and the Panthers. So, hockey center, the center of the hockey universe will be in Florida, and we're certainly excited for it. And I love the storytelling, Rob. That's a really cool aspect. And knowing you, knowing your team, knowing the Lightning organization, storytelling will be a big part of how we host and how we convey the Stadium Series to the entire hockey world and the world in general. So certainly going to be exciting. But before we get there, Rob, we are weeks away from the women's Final Four yet again here in Tampa at Amalie Arena. Going to be so exciting. The field I saw was released for March Madness. By the way, the court, I saw the court is beautiful. It is stunning in terms of what the layout will look like for the NCAA Women's Final Four. Going to be awesome with the seeds. We'll see who ends up making it to Tampa for the Women's Final Four, but UCLA, South Carolina, Southern Cal, and Texas are your one seeds. But there are certainly a lot of potential surprises in the field as well. USF is in the field, so that'll be fun to see. There's a lot of potential dark horses and sleeper teams that could make their way here to beautiful Tampa Bay for the Final Four. How are you and your team preparing, Rob? I know we've talked on previous episodes, all the notes you've taken, all the trips you've done, what you have done to prepare for this. I was a part of the previous Women's Final Four just a couple of years back and saw how special that spectacle was. What do these final moments, weeks, and minutes do for your team, and what are you focusing on most as we get set for Final Four weekend just a couple of weeks from now?
Weeks and minutes. We're down to the seconds, buddy. It is coming fast and furious. Got to start by putting our hats off to Claire Lessinger, who has done a fantastic job leading our local organizing committee. Women's Final Four is such a daunting host effort. It's a special and meaningful one. There's a lot of moving parts that go into it, and the job that Claire has done, as well as our entire local organizing committee, in making sure that no stone is unturned, every detail is accounted for, and we're preparing as diligently as possible. While it's our record fourth NCAA Women's Final Four, and that sounds like a lot, and we appreciate the opportunity to host every one of them, we're not resting on our laurels. We want to treat it like it's our first, not make any assumptions, and plan for anything and everything to give the absolute best experience possible to these student athletes and fans. The student athletes have worked their entire lives at this sport to be able to hopefully earn a trip to the Final Four, and we want to live up to that billing once they get here. So we've got a lot of special things planned. We can't wait to welcome all the fans as well. As I mentioned, the fans, I think there's a lot of folks that have been coming to Women's Final Four for several years. There's others that have joined in recent years and maybe didn't make it to the 2019 Women's Final Four. But regardless of whether you're a new fan or an old fan, we want the experience in Tampa Bay to be second to none. So a lot of planning going into it. We could not be more excited. But what I would tell you is an effort like this just has so many different partners and relationships that help make it work. So Team Tampa Bay is comprised of a lot of different organizations and individuals, and we want to lean into all the different specialists in their areas. One of those, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, is sustainability. When it comes to these major events, we want to do anything and everything we can to ensure that we're being as environment friendly as possible, and we're being as diligent as possible to making sure the event's footprint and the impact that goes around the event is as sustainable as possible. So nobody better to partner on that when it comes to our local organizing committee than TECO and our good friends there. And we're fortunate on this episode to have a very special guest with their president and CEO of TECO People's Gas, Helen Wesley. Well, let's kick things off with your role at TECO. How long have you been with the company, and what is your responsibility there?
Sure. So first of all, because it's very often confusing, TECO is really Tampa Electric, the electric provider, and TECO Peoples Gas, which is the gas provider. And I'm the president and CEO of TECO Peoples Gas. I've been with the company for almost 5 years, and we moved to Tampa almost 5 years ago. Hard to imagine.
Helen, we certainly know and appreciate just how much TECO is involved in our community, how much TECO pours into our community. Why is giving back so important to the company, to your values, and to your goals? At the top of this organization.
Sure, it's a great question. So, I mean, as a utility, you're just part of the community. You're part of the fabric of the community, the good and the bad. Everybody knows, during a storm, you see everybody out helping each other, helping the community get back on its feet. So people who work at either Tampa Electric or Peoples Gas just care about the community, and that goes for every community that we're in. So when it comes time to having a chance to participate in something like the Final Four, it's just right up our alley. It's an event that is a banner event for Tampa Bay for Tampa Bay. It gives us a chance to support the things that we believe in from a community perspective. Health and wellness is one of those pillars that we like to invest in. And then it also gives us a chance to bring our employees into the picture and enable them to engage on behalf of the company, because volunteering is a really big part of what we do. So it's just a whole nice combination of things.
You guys are such an amazing partner, always giving back. And you touched on it a little bit when it comes to women's Final Four, but for that event specifically, you're our local organizing committee's sustainability partner. And I wanted to just dive a little deeper when it comes to that. How does making sure a major event like the NCAA Women's Final Four in our hometown, make sure that event is sustainable, align with what TECO believes in?
Sure. So there's really probably four different ways that supporting an event like the Final Four makes sense for Tampa Electric and Peoples Gas. And the first is pretty obvious. I think a Final Four is such a marquee event. It brings so many people to the community. It puts Tampa and the area on the map in a different way. So having a chance to support something like that that's just right up our alley. We like to do things that support the people that we work with, our customers. It just really makes sense for us, and it's all part of economic development in Tampa Bay, which is so important to all of us. And it's one of the things we really enjoy about Tampa. There's so much energy in this place to make this place bigger and better and brighter. And of course, personally, we're big basketball fans from my standpoint, so something like the Final Four is an obvious fit. Couple of other ways it makes sense. As I mentioned, it's an opportunity for us to engage our people, and aligning the things that we do as an organization with our people and their values is really important. Our people get a chance in the way that we've structured our work with the Final Four to do some campus cleanup. So they can put in some volunteer hours doing that after the event. Just out of interest, I think overall our team volunteers about 30,000 hours a year, that's a lot of time spent in the community on various things. You mentioned the chance to support women and girls in sports. That's a huge thing for us. We like to just make sure that we are supporting all different aspects of our community, and we have a strong belief that sports is important. Connecting women and girls to sports, and then all of the ripple effect that happens from a leadership development perspective is a great aspect of the Final Four. And then lastly, I would just say, at Amalie Arena, we've supplied natural gas and electricity to the arena and surrounding facilities for a long time. So it just kind of makes sense.
I like you use the word energy quite appropriately there, Helen. So I see what you're doing and I love it. And not only just powering our communities, powering the venues that host some of our big major events, and you've been a big supporter, and TECO has of the prior two women's Final Fours. Obviously the college football national championship that we had here in 2017, our Super Bowl in 2021 that you, Rob, and I were talking about before we started this podcast. TECO has been such a key component and really a heartbeat in terms of support for some of these major events. Why is it so important for TECO to be attached to and so close to and support a lot of these major sporting events that Rob and the Tampa Bay Sports Commission brings to town?
I think it really just comes back to, one of our core values, which is being part of our community and serving our customers. So when our customers are doing big things, we want to make sure that they can be successful in doing that. And often it takes a lot of planning in early stages of big events to make sure that energy is, reliable, is cost effectively supplied. In this case, we've got a sustainability angle to it, trying to make sure that solar is part of the messaging, and we're raising awareness of the value of solar power to all of our customers. But at the core of it all, it's enabling the community that we survive and thrive in to do well by hosting these big events and hosting them successfully. So it's really not more complicated than that. And I would say maybe the frosting or the icing on the cake is the pride that all of our employees get from seeing our participation in those events. We're proud team members at Tampa Electric and People's Gas. And so, you get a chance to be part of a Super Bowl, a winning Super Bowl. That's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely. Now, something that may be a little more complicated that not, the average viewer may not, or listener may not understand, is that Amalie Arena is actually going to run off of renewable energy offsets for the 2025 NCAA Women's Final Four. For those folks that don't know what that means, I think this is really cool and would love for you to just share a little bit more about how that comes together and what that means for the community and, more importantly, the environment.
Sure. So I'm sure you're all aware of the investment that Tampa Electric has made in solar power in Tampa and surrounding area. And really what we've done with this event is we've figured out a way to calculate the carbon emissions that would benefit the environment by being reduced as a result of using renewable energy to fuel the event instead of traditional energy. So as it turns out, if solar power was used to power the Final Four event, that would be the equivalent in carbon emissions of taking about 125 cars off the road for a year. So by creating this mechanism called Sun to Go, of raising awareness of how much energy it takes to fuel an event like this, which then, if it were renewable, is a reduction in carbon emissions, enables us to convert some currency into more investments in solar power, just to keep this virtual circle going.
Wow. Thank you for bringing it down like that, Helen. It's powerful to kind of hear that comparison too. And just kind of last thing for me, beyond supporting kind of our local organizing committee here for the NCAA Women's Final Four that's going to be coming up here just in a couple of weeks. What other exciting projects does TECO have going on? I know you stay busy, Helen. I know there's a lot going on with TECO. I know that you're, as we've talked about here, so involved in our community. What other exciting projects do you guys have going on?
Well, we've got lots of ongoing community events. I would keep us here well beyond the lunch hour if I kept going through that. But, in terms of other things that are interesting from an energy perspective, we're constantly trying to figure out what consumer choice is all about and what customers want in energy. And as you know, it's really different today than it might have been 10 years ago. So on the Tampa Electric side of things, there's continued investment in solar energy to keep that being produced, which really ends up benefiting not just the environment, but it benefits customers as well from a cost perspective. And at People's Gas, one of the things we're doing is continuing to invest in different forms of bringing natural gas to customers. So bringing it in the form of compressed natural gas. So Hart Transportation, for instance, uses compressed natural gas. So that means that when gasoline isn't available or diesel isn't available, those buses can keep running, and particularly important during storms. We're also continuing to invest in facilities that bring renewable natural gas into pipelines. And that's things like dairies and wastewater facilities and landfills that produce renewable natural gas and then ultimately that natural gas can go into our pipelines and be a supply of fuel for Florida. So those are the kinds of things that we're investing in, and at the same time helping customers, because that's what customers want.
That is awesome and could not be more exciting. Helen, we really appreciate you joining us here today. I, for one, am very grateful, not only of all your support of Women's Final Four, and we talked about Super Bowl and the College Football National Championship, but I'm used to being the only one that brings the power and energy to this podcast because of Brian. So now, some of his deficiencies. So now to have you, Helen, come and help me bring the power and energy to this podcast is really, really meaningful.
That's fabulous. You know, if I knew we were going to have a play on power and energy, I would have really tuned up for that. I'll have to save that for next time. But
I feel energized just after this conversation, even after that little slight from Rob. But I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
Glad finally, this many episodes in, you're feeling a little energy, all because of Helen. Well, I do again just want to thank you for all the support on Women's Final Four. I want to do a quick plug too for our championship campus cleanup, which is March 30th from 8 to 10 a.m. And it's powered by TECO. You can log on to WFFTampaBay.com to register. It's going to be a really cool event. I know we're going to see a ton of the TECO family out there for it. And again, Helen, we could not be more appreciative of all the support and for you joining us here today as well.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you to you and all of our other customers. We really value all of you. Thank you.
So good to have Helen on. So great to hear from her. The energy unmatched with her interview, Rob, and so excited for it. Now, I know we do have a second episode coming up next week where we'll dive a little bit deeper into the Women's Final Four. Buddy, I don't want to spoil any surprises now, but can you give us a little tease maybe of what we can expect? Will there be some surprises to reveal on our next episode for fans, for here in our community, for people to know as we get set for Women's Final Four weekend, which will be here before you know it, April 4th to the 6th at Amalie?
Well, you got to tune in next week. However, I will share.
It's called a tease, buddy. You got to give a tease to the people.
This is the premier women's championship in the entire country. And it has so many different aspects and angles and events that are tied to it. So it is an amazing opportunity to be a part of it. And we're going to talk a little bit in the next episode about all the different events and ways to be able to enjoy the Women's Final Four, as well as all the different benefits that come with hosting for our community. So it's going to be a great deep dive on it. And we could not be more excited for these next couple of weeks as the road to Tampa Bay winds around, and this special season that's been unfolding for the last several months culminates right here at Amalie Arena.
That's all great, Rob, but I do get a half-court shot at halftime of the national championship game, right? Is that in the works? I believe that was in my contract between you and I.
I'll have to double check the rider there. I'll definitely find you a court somewhere to do that half-court shot. I'm just not so sure it will be at Amalie Arena, but we'll look into your rider for sure.
I've been working on that half-court shot. I've been watching lots of Steph Curry games recently, just to kind of to catch the perfect release to make sure that it's nothing but net. We know that it'll be a slam dunk in terms of Women's Final Four weekend. Cannot wait for you guys to hear our preview episode that's going to be coming up next week. So watch out for it. For Rob and myself, so enjoy all of you loyal listeners here for the Game Day Everyday podcast. Women's Final Four weekend almost upon us. Preview episode coming up next week. We'll see you guys then.